You just need to visit this particular website known as portal.azure.com. And as and when I click on this website, now it's asking me to go ahead and sign into Azure. It's telling, okay, fine, just like how a Gmail works, to go into your get into your emails and etc. Azure is now asking you to go ahead and say, Azure is now asking you, telling is that, you know what, please go ahead and give me your ID and give me the password associated with your ID. So what I'll say out here is that since we are very new to Azure, we do not have a ID and password, isn't it? So let's go ahead and create one. I'll say, okay, fine, I don't have an ID and a password. So please help me out to create one. And as and when I come to this screen, it's now telling me, okay, fine, please go ahead and create an account. Now there are two options here. You can either use an existing Outlook or a Gmail account. If you have an Outlook or a Gmail account, you can go ahead and you can go ahead and use that same thing out here, provided that it is not already associated with an Azure account already. Okay, so it shouldn't be associated with an Azure account beforehand. If let's say you have a Gmail or an Outlook that is pre-existing with you, you can go ahead and make use of it, or you can say get a new email address. You can get a new Outlook address out here. Okay, again the name should be unique and etc. Just like you create a Gmail account. But what I did is that, before the classes began, I just created a Gmail account. For me, I just created a Gmail account with something like my test account at the rate gmail.com, because I prefer using Gmail with, let's say, Azure. So what I did is that I created this account. I'm just taking the ID of this account. So I'm copying the ID and I'm saying, you know what, I have a Gmail account. So I'll provide a Gmail account and I will say next. Okay, let's see again. Let's see, create one. And it says, okay, fine, looks like don't have the account with us, and I'll say next. And here it's asking me for a password. So it's asking me that, okay, fine, you want to create an Azure account, I agree. Now, can you please go ahead and provide me something known as a password out here, right? So what I'm going to do out here is that I'll say Microsoft-001, a password that is a combination of capital letters, small letters, numbers, and etc. To be on a secure side, right? And I'll say, okay, fine, next. Now it is telling me, I have sent you an email verification, like just a very standard verification out there to this particular Gmail address. Could you please go ahead, give me that particular code, something known as a verification code out here. So I'll just go into my, so this is the procedure to create something known as an Azure account. Now, one question for y'all, everyone guys, is that now Azure acts similar to something like an Amazon account that you do have, okay? So let's say you have created an Amazon account. Can you just take that Amazon account and start watching Prime videos? Can you do that? You can't do that, right? You need something like a Prime subscription, isn't it? In the same way, Azure also has something known as a subscription with it. Okay. Now let's see, before going to subscriptions, let's see what exactly happened out here. Okay. Now, as and when I said, okay, fine, please go ahead and create an account with Azure for me. What Azure did is that it took my email ID. It said, okay, fine, I will create an account with you. And it ended up creating something known as an Azure tenant for me. This is known as a tenant. Now, why is this exactly known as a tenant? Now, this account, right? This now is known as a tenant. Now, why is this exactly known as a tenant? Is that again coming back to our demo session? We are not buying the services in Azure. We are renting them out. Okay. So if I stay in a rented house, I am called as a tenant, right? In the same way, for Azure, a customer of Azure is known as a tenant out here. Okay. A customer that is there with Azure is known as a tenant. So the first thing that comes up for me whenever I come into Azure is something known as a tenant. So I am a user who went ahead and created an account with Azure, and I am now called as an Azure tenant out. And each and every tenant has its own ID associated with it. which is known as a tenant ID. It is known as what? A tenant ID out here. So a tenant ID is a alphanumeric string that gets associated with your account as in when you create it with Azure. Okay, this is how Azure is going to identify you. Now, how does it look like really? Is that right now I'm here. So I'll just type in something like, or I'll just click here in the three buttons, right? It shows show portal menu. I'll click here and I'll just scroll down to something known as an Azure Active Directory, which we will be seeing, which is a service which we'll be seeing. And if I just click this, I now go into the Active Directory, and do you see here? I have something known as a tenant ID. This is what got associated, or this is what got assigned to me whenever I went ahead and just created an account with Azure. So now this is the tenant that is associated with me. And whenever I log into Azure, right, Azure kind of identifies me with this particular ID. And this ID is unique to a tenant. Meaning for every new tenant that you create, you will have a new tenant ID that is associated to your account. Okay. This is about, so how did I just create a tenant? I didn't do anything. I just said I want to create a new account with Azure. And as in when I gave the Gmail address, it went ahead and it created an account with Azure, and it's now calling this account as what? A tenant, right? Now you want to now start using the services of Azure, right? You want to now go ahead and start utilizing the services of Azure. So what you say is that I have a tenant, so can I start using? No, you cannot. You need a subscription under the tenant. Just like you have a Prime Video, like you need a Amazon Prime subscription, right? In the same way, to start using the services of Azure, you need something known as an Azure subscription. Then what are the different types of Azure subscriptions then? So let me start talking about Azure subscriptions out here. Subscriptions. And there are actually different types of subscription, and a subscription always comes under a tenant. Meaning you need to firstly have a tenant, meaning you need to have an account with Azure to create a subscription in Azure, right? So tenant always comes under the the subscription always comes under the tenant out here. And once I have a tenant, I can go ahead and create a subscription. But what kind of a subscription can I go ahead and create? Or what are the types of subscriptions that are available with Azure? Now, in general, the most popular subscription that is available with Azure is something known as a free trial. The most popular subscription that Azure gives you is something known as a free trial subscription. A free trial subscription is free for the first 30 days. You don't have to pay anything, you don't have to do anything. This is given by Azure to you all so that you can try out Azure. Because I'm new to Azure, I don't want to go ahead and pay to Azure. I want to first do a trial period. So this is the first trial period what Azure gives you is 30-day trial period. What do you need for this? So what would you need to create basically a free trial is that you need a valid credit card. You will need to have a valid credit card with you, give the credit card information, and then happen to create something known as a free trial subscription. Now, will you be charged on the credit card? Yes. The charge is 2 rupees. The first charge is 2 rupees so that Azure can validate that the credit card is existing, meaning the credit card is valid or not. So Azure is or Microsoft is going to charge you 2 rupees initially and saying, okay, fine, the credit card is valid. And then you can go ahead and create something known as a free trial subscription, which is free for the first 30 days. You will be given something known as a credits with this account. You will be initially having somewhere around 14,500 credits. Or Azure is going to say that, okay, fine, I'll give you something known as 14,500 rupees. You can now start using Azure with this particular credits for the first 30 days. Now this is valid. This subscription has a validity. It's 30 days. Or if the credit gets expired before 30 days, your subscription will be disabled. The card will not be charged. There is no auto renewal for this particular subscription because it's a free trial. Azure knows that you know what, you're just trying it out, and that's the reason Azure will not go ahead and charge you for this out. Okay. And the next most popular service that is available, or the most popular subscription that is available with Azure, is something known as pay as you go. It's something called as a pay as you go subscription. Now what happens in a pay as you go subscription is like it's very similar to the postpaid connection that you have. Like let's say you now want to go ahead, your free trial is expired, you now want to go ahead and let's say start using Azure. You'll have to convert your subscription to something known as a pay as you go subscription out here. Okay. And a pay as you go is that it has a monthly cycle. It has a monthly billing cycle. At the end of every month, you'll have to go ahead and pay what for whatever you have used. Depending upon the service that you used, you can go ahead and pay for it. The bill can anywhere be between let's say 50 rupees per month for let's say individuals like us who are not using a lot, to let's say 500,000 rupees for let's say something like an organization who use them a lot, right? But do organizations also go for it? No, not really. They have other kind of subscriptions called professional direct or enterprise support or enterprise support subscription. Enterprise support or professional direct comes into picture when you are working on a real-time environment, when you're working on a real-time subscription. The organizations would normally go for this kind of subscriptions because they provide a better support, meaning the support that Microsoft offers you is fast, is more efficient than what you compare to the other subscriptions that Azure offers. So these are the number of subscriptions what Azure offers. And what we will be seeing particularly today is about the free trial, like how do you go ahead and create a free trial, etc. So what happens here is that I'm here now. So this is the first page that you'll be seeing while you come down when you create something known as an Azure portal or an account with Azure. So A, you have a tenant now. Now what I'll do is that I'll just come down. If I just scroll down, I have something known as subscriptions out here, isn't it? So this is where it says subscriptions, right? So what I'll be doing out here is that, okay, fine. I'll click on something known as subscriptions. And as and when I click on subscriptions, it says, okay, fine, you don't have any subscriptions. Please add a new one or please create a new one with Azure. What I'll be doing out here is that I'll say add, and it will now take me to a page where it will tell, okay, fine, you know what? These are the number of subscriptions that I have on the offer. Right now it says, okay, fine, the most popular subscriptions for your account that I can give you is either a free trial or a pay as you go. I'll select free trial because this is what you all you guys need to select out. So I'll select free trial out here. Now it says, okay, fine, sign up for the free trial subscription. And now it will ask the different details like the first name, last name, and etc. So let me go ahead and say Azure account, and you need to give a phone number out here. And after you give a phone number, just say text me or call me. Anything is okay. If you now say text me or call me, Azure is now going to go ahead and give you something known as a code to that particular phone number. So you'll receive something known as a code. And once you have a code, just type in the code. Like after I give my phone number out here, right? It'll give me an option to go ahead and text or call. I can, let's say, please come on. Let's say for example, let's give my phone number out here, and I'll say text me. Let's say text me. After I click this, it's now going to send me something like a verification code onto my phone number out here. And as and when I verify this out, give me a second. So let's say 0248 verify. And as and when I do a verification out here, it's going to ask me for the organization and the PAN number. Okay, my PAN number and etc. So I can give organization something like Microsoft. So doesn't need to be any specific organization out here. You can give any organization's name out here. And PAN is optional. You don't have to give this. PAN is what? Optional. You don't have to give this. I suggest not to give this. Just say agree. I would like to share information with Microsoft. Just say next. So this is identification by phone. That to make sure that you are a genuine user, he'll just go ahead and send you a text message to your phone. Like this normally happens even with a Gmail account, isn't it? Like when you create a Gmail account, he'll just ask you for a phone number. You give your phone number. He'll give you a text code. You just enter the text code and he'll verify that. And finally, there is something known as identification by card. Now this is where you will have to give something known as a credit card information. Now it says, okay, fine, please provide a card. We'll make you temporary charge and etc. This is where you need to give information like the cardholder's name, all the details, whatever you do on a shopping cart. So the cardholder's name, the credit card number, the expiry, and the CVV, and just give an address and just say sign up. As and when you do a sign up, you'll be taken to the credit card or let's say the banking website, and it'll tell you that Microsoft is charging you ₹2. Can you give me the OTP or are you okay with that? Once you give the OTP and just say sign up out here, you will now get something known as a free trial subscription with Azure. Now, I do not have a credit card with me right now, so I won't be able to do this.
Can we use the debit card
You
on
can
this?
use debit card provided it is ICICI Bank. That's the
Okay,
only debit card what Azure is right now supporting.
all right.
That's the only debit card what I know that Azure is supporting. Like a few people had issues also with ICICI debit. So best practice is please go with a credit, or you can try out an ICICI debit card out here. Okay.
1 second, sir.
Yeah, please. Sorry,
1 second.
I didn't get you. I'm sorry.
Hello.
What was your question?
1 second, sir. Repeat. 1 second. Debit card.
Like, okay, so yeah, debit cards. So Azure is accepting a few ICICI debit cards. Again, it depends upon your profile and all those stuff. So it is either an ICICI debit card or any bank's credit card that you can
Okay, okay.
use out here.
Okay, okay. ICICI Bank only debit. Other bank credit.
Credit, other bank credits.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay.
Okay, so once you do this, once you give, let's say, information like the cardholder name, the cardholder number, the CVV, and all these information. Guys, can you please go on mute if you're not talking?
Debit credit and
Guys, can you please go on mute if you're not talking? Omkar, can you please go on mute if you're not talking? Okay, so you'll have to give the number, the name, all the information out here, and then do a sign up, and then you will get something known as a free trial subscription. So you will have your tenant and the subscription then getting reflected under the tenant out here. Okay, so you have two things. These are the two things that we are talking about. One being a tenant at the higher level, the other being a subscription that you are going to create. And after you create a subscription, here you will see something known as a free trial getting reflected and the status to be active. Okay. The subscription name will come as a free trial subscription. You will have a subscription ID associated with it. You'll have a role and you'll have, let's say, something like a status out there. So in my case, I use something like a pay as you go subscription. So if I go into my Azure portal, so this is how my Azure portal really looks like. And if I go into something known as subscriptions out here, I have something known as a pay as you go subscription. You people will have a free trial in place of it. And then it will have something known as a subscription ID and then something known as a role. And in your case, the current cost would be zero. In my case, since I'm been using it, the current cost is something like 86 rupees out here. and the status is active. This is what you will be seeing when you create a Azure subscription. Okay, but a free trial out here. So common questions are then, if let's say I use my free trial for 30 days, will it charge me for the 31st day? No. It will automatically, the status will automatically go into something known as disabled. Your account will be automatically disabled until you don't go ahead and say upgrade your subscription to something known as a something known as a pay as you go as such. Second question is that, can I create another free trial using the same card, using the same number? No, you won't be able to do that. Free trial is only once per a user. Once per a user, as in once per a number, once per a phone number, once per a email ID, once per a credit card. So if you have to create a new free trial, you'll have to change all these three informations: your email ID, your phone number, and your credit card information. If you change all these three things and provide something new, that's when you'll go ahead and, or you can go ahead and create something known as a new free trial subscription out here. Okay. Now I'm at this screen then. So I have, let's say, something like my free trial is done. So that's the reason I went into something like pay as you go. Now, can I add another subscription in here? Yes, no, maybe, anyone. So I already have a pay as you go. Can I go ahead and add another pay as you go? Yes, no,
Yes, we
maybe,
can.
anything.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
can create multiple subscriptions under one tenant.
Mhm. Okay. So anyone, any different answers? Yes. The answer is yes. You can add multiple subscriptions under the same tenant. You can add, let's say, multiple subscriptions under the same tenant. Meaning, if I now go ahead and click on add, it now say, okay, fine. My account is enabled with something known as multi-factor authentication. So it'll send me an notification telling that, okay, fine, please accept this out. And then it'll take me to the same page where you'll have multiple offers telling that, okay, fine, these are the offers and etc. But in my case, I won't be able to see something known as a free trial. Free trial would be disabled because I've already used a free trial with this. So I cannot go ahead and add a free trial out here. I'll add, or I'll have other subscriptions like professional and all that stuff. Okay. But the question is, why do you want to add multiple subscriptions under the same tenant? Right? Why do you need multiple subscriptions? Can you create everything in one subscription? Yes, you can. Whatever you do with Azure, you just need one active subscription. That's it. You don't actually need multiple subscriptions. Then the question is, why do organizations do that? Why do organizations need multiple subscriptions under the same tenant? Let's look at that scenario out here. Okay. So let's come down. Let's say, Azure AD. So let's imagine that this is a tenant. Okay. Let's come down. Let's imagine that this is an Azure tenant. So you have created an Azure tenant out here. So let's name this as Azure tenant. And now I went ahead and created something known as a subscription under this Azure tenant. Now let's imagine that this Azure tenant belongs to a company known as Tata. Okay. Now is where we'll get into real-time scenario. Telling that this is an Azure tenant that belongs to a company known as Tata. Now, is Tata a single company or does Tata have multiple companies under it? Multiple companies, right? Like Tata Motors, Finance, Capital. You have a lot of, basically subsidiary companies under a major company or under a parent company known as Tata. Now, Tata has moved to Azure and said, you know what? I need to make sure that an employee of Tata Motors should only be able to log in to the portal of Tata Motors, to the Azure portal of Tata Motors, because now you are an employee who's working for Tata Motors and who's working on Azure cloud for Tata Motors. It says, okay, fine, this is how I need it. An employee that belongs to something known as Tata Motors should only be able to log into the Azure subscription of Tata Motors with his login ID and password that I give. An employee, however, of let's say Tata Steel should only be able to log into the Azure portal of Tata Steel and not the Tata Motors. So two things out here, right? So let's talk about subscriptions. Let me pull the diagram of subscription out here. So this is how a subscription really looks like. This is the representation of a subscription out here. So I have two different subscriptions right now, meaning one a Tata Motors, the other a Tata Steel out here. So let's say Motors. Let's say Tata Steel. Under the same tenant, the parent is the same. Parent remains the same, but the subscriptions are different. Now, when you do this, you will effectively isolate one subscription from the other, meaning the tenant can be the same. But here you are achieving something known as an isolation. What exactly do I mean by isolation? Is that let's imagine this is the entire globe and these are two individual or these are two, let's say, individual islands on the globe separated by a lot big ocean. Isolation. Meaning now an employee of Tata Motors will only be able to log in to the subscription of Tata Motors, and the employee of Tata Steel will only be able to log in to the subscription of Tata Steel. Now, what I can do effectively with this is that I can isolate and I can see what is the bill that Tata Motors is giving me, what is the bill Tata Steel is giving me, and the bill that gets generated on the subscription level should be paid by the tenant. That is how it is. It should be paid by the tenant, meaning now the tenant, meaning let's say I am the administration or I am the administrator of the entire Tata tenant. I now am able to see what is the bill Tata Motors is giving me versus what is the business revenue what Tata Motors is giving me. What is the bill Tata Steel is giving me versus what is the revenue what Tata Steel is giving me out here. Isn't it? So this is where I can go ahead and achieve something known as in perfect isolation out here. The question again can be that, you know what, can I have just one subscription for all the companies and achieve an isolation? Yes, you can, but not a best practice. The best practice is not that. That's the reason when you start working with a real-time organization, you will have multiple subscription under it, each subscription for one different team. Let's say if the company is big, let's say like Microsoft has an R&D department, Microsoft has a support department, they have product department and etc. They give subscriptions to each and every department and say, okay, fine, please go ahead and start using this out. Okay, so this is how I can effectively uh, achieve something known as an isolation, and I can know what is the billing that's getting generated in each and every subscription, and I can now decide how the subscription is actually working. Okay, any questions clear, guys? Is this concept clear? So subscriptions, so we said free trial, pay as you go, enterprise support, professional, direct, and etc. We saw how to go ahead and create something known as a free trial, and what are the prerequisites for, what are the essentials for a free trial? You need to have a number, you need to have a mail ID which is not associated with Azure, and you need to have a credit card that you have not used with Azure, and then you can go ahead and create something known as a free trial account. And free trial is free for how many? 30 days. For 30 days, and after the 30 days you won't be charged. The subscription will go into something known as disabled state. Okay, the subscription is now going to go into something known as a disabled state out there. And if you want to create a new free trial, you'll need all three details again fresh, or you can go ahead and convert your account to something known as a pay as you go. The again popular thing is that, let's say if after 30 days I go ahead and convert myself into a pay as you go, how much will I be charged? So it depends upon how much you use. For example, now I have a subscription. I've been using the subscription, let's say, since the last 6 months, and I've been doing all my activities on the subscription, and my bill never went beyond something like 150 rupees per month. So around 150 200 is the charge what you'll be paying for a month out here. Okay, but if you have multiple credit cards, then I would suggest, since that this is a very starting stage for you all, please go ahead and create multiple free trails so that you know what is the billing or how much, let's say, you're using and etc. According to which you can decide whether you need to go for a pay as you go and etc. Okay. Another suggestion that I do have for my class is that don't, please don't all at the same time go ahead and create a free trail for each and everyone. If let's say one creates, try to share that with each other, because free trial is like really free, so it's not going to charge you anything. So in that way, let's say for the first month someone creates a free trial and you're sharing it out, it'll be helpful for the second month. If you'll have a new credit card and you'll be sharing the subscription out there. So that's how you can effectively divide the free trails and all that stuff. Okay. Any questions still here, guys? Any questions?
We will get all the features like as a pay as you go, or there is some limited feature in field drive.
A great question. So question is that will I get all the features in a free trial like a pay as you go? No, not really. You won't get all the features. You will have some limitations for each and every feature. Like
All
you
right.
cannot create, let's say, I mean, you can basically go ahead and create all the services that are offered by Azure, but there is a limitation on each and every service. But will it be sufficient? Yes, more than sufficient for us to go ahead and practice it and test it out.
Oh,
Okay, so does that answer your question?
yeah.
Any more questions, guys? User management, great. So I will talk about user management. How do you manage users and etc., which is the concept that I'm going to come to. Okay, any more questions here? Any more questions out here? Okay, so one question that came out is that what about user management? Meaning, what exactly is user management out here? Okay, let's talk about that. Again, let's come down to our mini diagram board out here. Let's put another diagram out here telling that okay, fine, this is a tenant and I'll have a subscription under it. So one tenant and one subscription, like the way we have. Okay, so you're practicing, you just have one tenant out here and you have just one subscription out here and under this particular tenant out here. So I have a pay as you go subscription now. Let's say again, same thing, this Tata Motors under it. Now let's see what are all the players in a team of a Tata Motor. Okay, let's say you have a development team. Let's see what are all the different users of this particular development team. Okay, you will have a manager in the team. Very simple, you will have someone to manage out. So you have a manager. You have few developers. You have developers. You will have someone like testers. You'll have a QA. So I'm putting a complete development team out here. So you have a manager, you have a developer, you have a QA, you have a DevOps engineer. 4 roles out here. Now, is it okay if all the 4 roles have the same kind of privileges on the Azure subscription? No, right? It isn't ideal. If the manager has the same access, like let's say a developer, then there is no real difference. There is no point of authority. That's what I mean. So there should be different roles for someone who's logging into Azure. Then what kind of roles that Azure really support? So very, very important. There are 3 broad roles what Azure supports. 3 broad. I'm not telling like 3 roles out there. I'm telling 3 broad roles. Okay. If you look at the number of roles what Azure offers, there are more than 100 roles. But I'm just talking about 3 broad roles what Azure can offer. They are owner, contributor, and reader. 3 roles out here. Okay. So let's see what they are. Owner, first role. Second role is someone like a contributor. Third role is someone like a reader. Owner, contributor, and a reader. Now, what can an owner do? Owner is like an administrator for a subscription. Is that the owner can manage costs, add another user, okay, delete a user, create resources in Azure, delete resources in Azure. Meaning, what are resources? We'll be talking about individual resource that in the coming classes. But an owner can be someone like an administrator who can do anything and everything with Azure subscription. Can he delete Azure subscription? Yes. Can also go ahead and delete an Azure subscription, but he generally won't do that. Can he also go ahead and delete? Yes, he can, but generally doesn't advise or generally not to do that. So let's talk about the role of an owner. So usually a manager of your team, right, will be an owner of the subscription or a project manager. Okay. So he can add users. First thing, he can add or delete users. Meaning, let's say now the manager has a new team member. Can he add the team member to Azure portal? Yes, he can, because he has a role known as an owner on top of what, this particular subscription. He can modify or he can see the cost and all these things. So see the cost and decide what is the cost, set budgets and all that stuff. He can add or delete resources, meaning resource management. This is what an owner can do. And generally, owner role is assigned to someone like a project manager, like someone who's playing a role of a project manager and everyone, right? They'll be having something known as an owner role out here. Okay. Then who's a contributor then? Now, a contributor, so this is the very, very important difference out here. A contributor can do everything an owner can, but he cannot add or delete the users. Okay. So then owner can add or delete the users as well. Contributor cannot do it. If I am a contributor, I cannot go ahead and add a new user out here. Okay. Only if I'm an owner, that's when I can go ahead and add a user. That's the reason an owner role is only assigned to someone like a project manager who knows who's coming into this project and etc. So that's what a reader role is. So the only difference between an owner and a reader is that a contributor can do everything what an owner can do, but cannot go ahead and add or delete the users. You cannot do that. Then how about a reader? Reader doesn't have any roles as such. He can only see what is there inside your subscription. That's it. Why do you need this role? Let's say because each and everything that you do in Azure, right? It's associated with something like a cost. There's a price tag associated to it. Let's say you want someone like an external auditor who just wants to see if, let's say, if your the price that you're giving, is it the right one that you're generating out here, right? If I want someone like an external auditor who's not technical person, who's not really a technical person, who just wants to see what is the cost that is generated, if I want someone like that, then the owner can assign something like a reader role to that particular person. That person cannot do anything. He can just see what is there in Azure and tally whether what report that you have given is that right or not. Okay. So three broad roles in Azure, guys. This is very, very important. Now these are called RBACs, role based access control. In Azure, these are known as RBACs. RBAC, role based access control. Access control. A very popular interview question is that what are role based access controls in Azure? What are the RBACs that you know about? Okay. Then the question is that, like, these are the very popular interview questions whenever you take interview for someone, right? This is the questions that we kind of ask. Is that what is the main difference between an owner and a contributor? They'll also ask you scenario based questions telling that, you know what, I'm a contributor. I'm not able to add a user. Why is it that? Because you are a contributor, you cannot do that. The role is defined like that. Then what is a reader? Where do you assign readers and etc. And who is, let's say, they'll also ask you tricky questions like, do you also play a role of an owner? Mostly no, because a project manager as such plays the role of our owner. In very, very, very rare case scenario, will a developer or a QA will play a role of an owner. Okay. So these are the very popular questions.
Yeah,
What?
Kiran, I have one question.
Hmm.
If you assign the project manager as a honor role, right?
Okay.
So what is the difference between Azure administrator and project manager role?
Now, see, again, in some teams, right, in very big organizations, even the project manager doesn't get to play the role of an owner. There
Mm-hmm.
is a separate team known as an Azure administrator team who will take
Mm-hmm.
care of all these things, adding roles and etc. Like the
Mm-hmm.
way you contact them is through emails or support tickets or ServiceNow tickets and etc. So in very big organizations, like let's say you have an organization like Microsoft, okay? Now
Mm-hmm.
the project manager here should be playing a very important role to manage the entire project and not the administration part, because that's not his job role, right? So let's say in small organizations, the project manager will be playing the same role as an Azure administrator. But in big
Okay.
organizations, right, this owner role will not be given to the project manager as such. It will be given to a separate team which can basically play a point of control. That's where Azure administration comes into picture.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, we can create custom roles as well. You can also have a custom role. So that's the reason I told this is a three broad classification, not the three available rules. You can also go ahead and create your own custom rules, own custom roles, and also and assign that to, let's say, the users. But this is a pure administration part. Like all these are pure admin rules. Like whoever is acting, let's say someone like an Azure administrator, then that's the I mean those basically will be working on the Azure Active Directory and everything. Then the
So
question is, why are we looking at it? Is
we will
the thing is
cover
that
all the administrative part as well in this.
not everything from the administrative part, but whatever is essential for DevOps engineer, we'll be
Okay.
covering those, because administration in itself is a big role in altogether. Okay, and if we club administration with DevOps, right, it'll be very confusing. So we will be covering that part of the administration which is very important for us. Like user administration is not that important for us. Resource administration, yes, it is important for us, because as a DevOps engineer, right, we primarily looking at resources, not the users and etc. But you'll have to know what these are. You'll have to know or do a know-how of what these are, because interview questions can be from, if you, let's say, if you study something, it's just like a JNTU paper. You just study something and go there, right? You'll get some out of syllabus questions as well. So that's the reason we're also covering these two. Okay. Any more questions with this, guys? Any more? Anyone? So quick recap again. The first thing that I want you all to do today is, like, please open your laptops and create something like an Azure subscription and just read about something known as RBACs, role based access controls. Now, where do you read it? One specific thing that I want you all to do is go to a website known as docs.microsoft.com. Okay, this is a very, very, very important website. This will be like your Bible or anything basically that you'll be using for the entire course. Everything that you need is there here. Okay, so this is docs.microsoft.com. In here you will have all the listings of all the products that Microsoft has, but one product that I'm interested in, something known as Azure. And then here it'll tell, okay, fine, these are all my feature products and all that stuff. Here you can go ahead and search for something known as RBACs, and you'll get something known as an RB, or the role based access control out here. And this will give you everything and anything that you need with Azure. Let's say you want to be more specific, then say RBAC Azure docs, Azure RBAC documentations. It'll tell you what is RBAC, understanding the different rules that are there in Azure, and this is what it will give you. Okay, so it'll tell you these are the rules and everything. So just give it a read. Just say what is it and etc. It'll say co-administrator, service administrator. There are a lot of roles out here. So please just give it a read. Okay. At this point, just go ahead, just give it a read. That's it. Okay. Any more questions with this, guys? So over the course curriculum, the most important thing that we'll have to see is that how do you do a Google search to get your answers out there? Because that's very important skill, right? Because believe me or not, 80% of the entire IT industry is only surviving because of Google. Because there is Google, you are able to survive. But the thing is, you'll have to know how to do a Google search. You cannot do a random Google search and get your search query, right? So we'll see over a period of time, we'll see what are the errors that you get while you create resources and etc. How do you Google it and all that stuff. That's a very important skill that we need to understand. Okay. Okay, guys. So that's it from my end today. I don't want to overburden you with a lot of syllabus out there. Let's start slowly with something known as Azure resources tomorrow, and let's continue this journey that way. Okay. So any questions, y'all can reach out to me. Anything you all can just ping me or give me a message. I'm here to help you out. Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a great day ahead.
Thanks, Kiran.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.